Oh, hi there. Been a couple days since I made a video. I figured I'd make one now. Uh, my neck's been a bit sore. Uh, I've been looking at the last few videos I've made, and I've actually been slouching in them. Or it looks that way anyway. I'm always slouching. I don't have perfect posture, okay? But I figure I'd raise my chair a bit and it'd look a bit better. Anyway, and I think it does from what I see on the screen. Anyway, um, yeah, not much has been going on. As far as, television wise, been watching a little bit of that. I saw a documentary, A Passionate Eye, on Harvey Weinstein. Wasn't too terribly informative. I mean, he is what he is. Harvey Weinstein is some sort of an ogre anyway. He looks like one. They kind of made him out to sound like he was quite pathetic. There was one story going where he was like crying because he thought the woman he was chasing didn't like him because he was fat. Uh, and I don't know how old he is. He's got to be at least 50, probably closer to 60. Um, and this was supposed to have been, like 15 years ago or something like that, if I recall correctly. And it's, like he's the beast of their worries, to put it. There are other characters who do think they're above the law in Hollywood. And you'll get most people come around and they won't know anything about it. I mean, how can you know anything about it? Or they'll have the vaguest of impression, or they will know full well and they'll keep their mouth shut because they're gutless worms. I mean, people can't help being that way. In the face of adversity, most people cave in. They give up. They conform to the system, and they turn a blind eye to horrible things because obviously having a piece of trash like Harvey Weinstein running around operating Hollywood makes all men look bad. I mean, as I said, he's probably the least of the worries of the creeps that are out there. Um, and in particular in Hollywood, and when you talk about Hollywood, you gotta think of the wider picture. It's not just the movies that go into the movie theaters. It's also the pornographic industry. It's media as a whole on all fronts. Facebook, Twitter. They're all associated. They all do the same task, which is manipulating the public into believing what it is they want them to believe, to change their nature, because the higher ups are constantly obsessed with the notion that they can change humans' behavior to whatever they want it to be, and constantly tinkering. And that's not such a bad thing in some ways because a lot of people are assholes and they don't need to be. But I don't like the idea of like a shadowy figure that can come around and just, put people in a bad place because it feels like it. That reminds me of like the CCP and what Chris Chappell talks about on China Uncensored, on how, the government's able to do things and nobody can do anything about it. Well, I don't actually have too high a respect for them. I mean, some people go, "Oh, you gotta respect them. They earn their way there. They put their sweat and tears into it and things like that." And you go, "Oh, hold on a second. If whomever this individual is has a bias, is stupid, is an asshole, and looks like an ogre, no, I don't have to respect them." And someone come around tell me, "Oh no, you better respect them, man. I don't know anything about them, but you better respect them." It ain't gonna happen. Um, I mean, like people are so judgmental, and people are always, you know, trying to elevate themselves above other people. And this is what guys like Harvey Weinstein would do to young women, and that was obviously totally unacceptable. And it's really quite a horrible thing that I don't want to say he's the poster boy because he's a creep in his mid 50s probably, worth too much money. But he's, a poster boy in the sense that he's the one going into court. He's the one, uh, all the idiots are, they're all hail and brimstone against this guy. And, he's the one taking a fall for people who are much worse. Because as disgusting as that sounds of, a pot-faced, disgusting blob uh, being naked in a room with a young woman. One of the women was an Italian woman, 22 years of age she was. And as gross as that sounds, there are people who are far worse. And, I don't think respect has to be, I don't think it should be earned through, people having gone through bad experiences and, being able to learn from it and have gained wisdom from it. Obviously, that plays a factor. I have no idea what, the rise of Harvey Weinstein was like. I highly doubt it was particularly easy for him. I don't know, maybe he came from a rich family. Maybe it was easy for him. I don't know. I don't care. Um, but not usually, because that business, more than any other, is, to put it bluntly, is cutthroat. There's always someone trying to axe somebody else or someone trying to give the boot so that they can get in on the scoop or the whatever in that industry, and they have to use fear and intimidation, or else they just look like pushovers. But there has to be obviously a kind of more of an intellectual quality about how they operate their business. Um, and scaring the bejesus out of 22-year-old Italian chicks is, at least in my opinion, is not the way to do it. However, this is the porcelain mask. This is the smoke screen. Everyone's attention is focused on Harvey Weinstein because that's a name that somebody can think of when they think of these bad things. But there was a combination of reasons of why that Passionate Eye documentary was not particularly good. Because you can kind of get it, the general idea, the atmosphere of a documentary as you're watching it. And, there are a lot of them that a lot of words are said, but, you're not actually learning anything from it. And, there was a few stories of him, being a creepo and misleading women into his hotel and things like that. But, obviously there are worse scenarios, like probably like Eurotrip when the I have no idea what that actor's name was, but when he went to Amsterdam and went to that place, that sounds much more horrible. And it's just one of those things you don't even want to imagine. And unfortunately, Hollywood has been dominated by men since the beginning of its existence. And there are many a tale in that industry that are stories that, should be put in the vault so that, they don't happen again, but we don't really talk about them because they're just not good stories. Um, yeah, anyway, men in particular have been quite brutal in that industry in all sorts of ways. Not that there haven't been evil women, that isn't true at all. Uh, I just, we're coming to a new era of how the world operates. And unfortunately, it can be like a pendulum. There are people out there with bias who go, well, men were S so and so for so long, it's time the pendulum went the other way. And therefore, you know, young men should, you know, be treated unfairly. And I've noticed this in society because, they've tried to emasculate the male population as a whole. Uh, if you do not conform to what their standard of right is, and it's completely based on bias and just them maneuvering their current political agenda. Justin Trudeau is the worst for this, and I am so thankful that Hillary Clinton didn't get in. The very thought of Justin Trudeau crawling to Hillary Clinton, ugh, ugh, don't even go there. We're not going to talk about that no more. Anyway, yeah, and then you get other, political figures like you get your Lady Gagas and even Miley Cyrus to an extent, and other ones like that, where they're really pushing this LGBTQTSF stupid fucking idiot, whatever they call it. I don't care what they call it no more. Um, and it's like that's the angle they want to push. And obviously, most men, it's just not going to work on them. They're going to, look at people who've been brainwashed into this sort of way of thinking and go, yeah, poor simple idiot. And they'd have every right to, because they look ridiculous, look foolish. And, it's all about setting a standard. You know, uh, homosexuality and all that sort of stuff has, it's been in society for a long time and to varying degrees. But, if you want to be a homo, go be a homo. That's your business. I think I've said that in other videos. And that's getting a little off track here because I was talking about Harvey Weinstein and, what he did over the years was wrong, but there are worse characters than him. And you don't know where they're coming from or who they are, and it's all about secrecy with them. They want to remain anonymous. They don't want anyone knowing anything about them, and anyone who does know anything about them has verbal cues and social mechanisms to either encourage them um, to not talk, um, or discourage them from talking, or whatever, whether it's financial, whether it's anything else. There are many people who do not want to be excommunicated from the inside circle, and they feel if they think on these people of absolute power and things like that, and they only have this absolute power because they have minions who will enforce their policies. They got a heads up on the everyday man because they were taught all this sort of stuff as they were growing up. Um, just about every political leader had a foot up in their whatever industry or whatever environment they were in that the average person didn't get. It's not to say that you know a a Prince Charles or a Donald Trump would be as successful today if they were the same age as the young generation and they had access to all the same information. Would they be as well off? The answer is probably not. And so it is kind of one of these things that, uh, power is a real thing, but, it's not actually particularly intelligent. I mean, obviously, you know, jokes have arisen of over the years of people with power being ousted, and deservingly so. I guess the most comical version would be Star Wars and Darth Vader throwing the Emperor, down that, whatever you call it, power chamber or whatever, and dispatched him that way. Um, but yeah, he would be a slimy person, and there would definitely be those types in the movie industry. Um, I got to thinking though, um, you know, uh, I don't think society's going in the right direction. I think there are many problems that still need to be sorted out. I just don't think the leadership has the proper grasp on how to fix these sort of things. I mean, obviously, there are people who are trying their best. They're doing everything they can. They're a lot wiser, have a lot more worldly knowledge than I do. Um, and, maybe bravery is one of those things that is easier to have if you can't directly see what the problem is. As soon as you see exactly what the problem is, then it becomes a little more intimidating. But, the funny thing about things that appear to be intimidating is that should they come to light and people actually see them for what they are, yes, at first it is overwhelming, but you will see how stupid it is over time. Like, I'm trying to think of an example here. Okay, how about the Borg Queen from Star Trek? I knew pretty much nothing about her until about 2 months ago. Other than there was a caricature of her in StarCraft, and I always laughed at because it was just it was just a humble machine that basically told coordinates and was told what to do in the original StarCraft, and that's just hilarious that this Borg Queen is so frightening and intimidating in one universe, and then you switch to the StarCraft universe, and it's like, oh, who cares? She's a waste of time. Um, uh, yeah, well, yeah, I wish there were more points to talk about with this passionate eye documentary, but there really wasn't. It was just kind of like a filler episode, really. I mean, the trial was ongoing. I suppose there was some legality there or whatever that's coming up the works as far as, telling a story that actually is a bit more accurate and, not oversimplifying things. Because that was, it was a PG documentary for sure. And I guess maybe that's the way it should be, but I didn't particularly learn anything critical about it. And the thing is, I actually missed the first 10 minutes of it. That might have helped. It was on again, because obviously Passion and I will replay again later in the day. And coincidentally, because I'd left my television on, I went to the grocery store to get some milk and some other things. And I came back, and it was at the exact same scene that I, flicked it to on that channel from before. Oh, I forget her name. She had dark hair, and she wasn't the Italian woman. I can't remember her name. She was talking about her story, and it was total coincidence. It was like the exact, like almost like within the same 20-second time span of when I walked in the second time, and it was still on the television. And I mean, obviously, I wasn't watching the news for that long. I, gone and worked on other projects. I like to leave the television on. So yeah, anyway, I wish that was a bit more informative. I, obviously don't want anything graphic as far as imagery goes. The very thought of Harvey Weinstein nude is something that I would not enjoy seeing. And, that's a matter of fact with all men, actually. Like when I watch porn, and don't get me wrong, I don't like porn. I wish I didn't have to watch it because, it's better to score chicks, obviously. But, like the man is supposed to be quiet, out of the way, and it's not about him. It's about the chick. Um, and obviously, I don't associate porn uh, with actual women. Uh, Not to say that they're not real people, but I just from my perspective, they may as well just be a computer generated image because they're they're not anybody I would ever know. Um, you know, so I put up some points here that I was trying to make about that documentary I watched and just society as a whole. And you know, I would really like to converse with people and have proper conversation about these sort of things because they are kind of important topics, and my 2 cents I would like to think is worth something. But I guess some people don't agree with that, and they're entitled to their opinion, even if it is stupid. Anyway, I hope Harvey Weinstein gets what he deserves, and I hope that the creeps that are obviously hiding behind his obesity are also brought to justice. Like, I don't feel good for Rose McGowan and how, it sounds like she was, struck very bad by this industry. And, I genuinely believe her story. From what I've heard, you only hear parts of it here and there on the media, but I genuinely believe she's telling the truth about things. And, that's obviously a disgrace that there are men in power that were like that. And it shouldn't represent all men, but in some people's opinion, it does. Um, you know, Obviously, it's something to be taken into consideration anyway. So I guess I'll stop talking about this topic because it's not actually a fun topic anyway. Anyway, yeah, I'll see you later, I suppose. Fans and enemies alike. Ta ta.